Hello everyone, I am here with a video that probably should have been one of my first videos on this channel, but I kind of forgot that it existed until now, and that is the Booktube Newbie Tag. And I saw some other folks doing this and it reminded me that it existed, and so I thought I'd do it as well. So I've got a nice warm little drink. It is a cloudy, very cold afternoon here, and I'm feeling cozy. Hopefully you are too. So grab your own drink and let's talk about Booktube. The first question is, why did you start this channel? And for me, I have been watching Booktube for a long time, since I was like in high school, which I've been out of for a long time now. And yeah, I've just kind of always been in the community on the periphery. I've really enjoyed watching videos, getting a lot of good recommendations, and kind of the community and discussion that Booktube fosters. And yeah, I've just enjoyed how the internet can create kind of this global community and global book club of sorts. So it was kind of only inevitable that I would eventually start making my own videos. I actually made some in 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic, but I was never courageous enough to post them, and also never had the time or will really to learn how to like edit them and actually upload them. And I am very technologically challenged, so that felt like a really big thing for me that I just like couldn't figure out how to do. But yeah, now I'm here, and yeah, I moved to a new town this spring and left a lot of my kind of physical, in-person community of people who I talked about books with behind. I used to be part of a book club. I had a lot of friends who read a lot, but yeah, I don't have them here in my new spot, and so it just kind of made me want to bring that online so that I could still have a place to talk about books, and to talk about books with other people. So, okay, the next question is, what is unique about this channel? And honestly, I feel like I'm kind of just another white American talking about my opinions on books. But I guess one thing is that I do read across genres quite a lot. I read a lot of different books. And I think I've noticed with some YouTube channels, or with a lot of YouTube channels, people seem to primarily read one or two genres. Like, people are either reading just a lot of lit fic, contemporary literary fiction, or they're reading YA, or they're reading fantasy. And to a certain extent, I feel like that's maybe a good move if you're trying to be on Booktube, because you kind of have your niche that you do. But I read a lot, and I kind of crave that from other creators who read a lot of different things. And so hopefully that means that there's a little something for everyone here. Also, I am queer, and I read a lot of queer literature, and I'm really interested in talking about that, and also talking about like queer literary culture and history, and kind of the context behind queer literature and what we have now and what we had before, and the trajectory of it. So if you're into that sort of discussion, and you like to read queer books about the LGBTQ plus community, books about trans and non-binary people especially, I do read a lot of that, and I'm eager to talk more about those sorts of things. Also, my cat will probably be in most of the videos, and you just look at her. That's good. That's special, right? I love you so much. Okay, so next question is, what are you most excited about with this channel? And for me, I think it's doing more kind of creative, in-depth videos. I really am inspired by kind of the crazy detective wall videos and sort of long-form deep dives into things, and I'm excited to start doing some of that stuff. I do have some ideas about it, and things I really want to talk about. So I'm excited to grow in that way. I'm also excited to build my editing skills. Like I said already, I'm pretty hopeless with tech, and so this has already been a good learning experience, even though my videos are pretty rough right now. But yeah, I'm excited to grow in that skill as well. and to connect with people. You know, my channel is basically non-existent right now, but I do hope that as I make more videos, more people will start watching and I can start having those conversations about reading and lit that we all like to have. Next question is, why do you love reading? And I feel like a lot of people will probably say similar things, but for me, it's first and foremost the escapism and the ability to open a book and just enter into another world and be transported. You know, experiencing the world through other people's eyes and experiencing places in the world that I've never seen, and probably a lot of them that I never will see. That experience and that ability to do that is just so important and so powerful. And that's been the thing that I've loved about reading ever since I started to read. I also think that reading and reading a lot is really important for developing a strong sense of empathy, and I think it certainly helped me develop a sense of empathy and justice and yeah, just awareness of the world around me, even things that aren't necessarily directly related to me. And I think that makes me a better and more aware and more engaged person overall. And I think reading and literature and writing are really important tools for that. Okay, what books got you into reading is the next question. And this is a hard question. Ooh, that's hot still. I think the books that I read, the first books that I remember really devouring and reading a lot were the Magic Treehouse series, which my parents used to read me out loud, and then I read myself. We read Laura Ingalls Wilder, and I loved the Little House on the Prairie books, the chapter books. Those were some of the first chapter books that I read by myself. I think also Beverly Cleary, the Ramona series. Oh my gosh. I loved those books. I still have a set of them at my parents' house, and I just love those books so much. I also was an American Girl kid, and so my family wasn't like rich enough to have a bunch of the dolls. I eventually got one of them for Christmas from an aunt of mine, but I devoured all of those books because our library had all of them and all of the historical ones, and I just devoured them all. And that's another example of something that's meant for kids to teach about history and to teach about things that kids will never experience. And so that really, yeah, got my love of reading going. I mean, I think other things that like made sure that reading was one of my favorite things to do when I was a kid were those kind of long involved fantasy series like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. And when I was older, like the Hunger Games and Twilight and that sort of thing, I just remember reading those books and being so invested in them. And so, sorry, my cat's taking a shit. I remember reading those and being just so invested in them and so invested in the characters and the worlds and the excitement of when a new book was coming out and just waiting for it. I remember having countdown calendars for like when the next Harry Potter or Hunger Games or any of those would come out and just being so excited for it. And I feel like when you become an adult, nothing is ever as exciting as book releases were when I was a kid. The next question is, what would you ask your favorite YouTubers or booktubers if you could? And I think YouTubers in general would be editing tips, because also just like what editing software to use and how they work. And I have so many editing questions. I think for booktubers in particular, I wonder how you come up with consistently creative ideas to have like a continual flow of content. Because I find myself having things that I know I'm going to want to do over and over again, like end of month wrap ups or books I'm looking forward to or TBRs or book hauls, whatever. And I do have some ideas for other videos, some of which I've done already, but it just is such like a constant creative output, and I'm really impressed by the ability to keep up with that and keep having like fresh new content. And just also how you find the time, because it is like super time consuming to film and plan and edit and upload, and almost everyone who isn't like a huge YouTuber obviously has another job or multiple other jobs, which I currently have. And so, yeah, just finding the time and continually having the, like, just not getting burnt out on it. I would love tips on that. Next question is, what do you think the biggest challenge of this channel will be for you? And as I've already said multiple times, and as you have probably noticed if you were watching this video or any of my other videos, editing is a big challenge for me. I'm not very good at it. I'm new at it. And I think the learning curve for it is steep, for me at least. Like I said, I'm a little technologically challenged. And yeah, I guess I'm not really in the financial place to have really nice equipment for filming. I film everything on my phone, and to pay for editing software. And so I'm just kind of using the software that I can get for free that seems to work the best, and, you know, trying not to pay a lot of money for anything. And yeah, I don't like putting out things that I don't feel are the best that I can make them at my current ability, and that means also that I am spending a lot of time editing and figuring things out. And yeah, I think it's going to be a learning curve before I get like good or comfortable with it. And as I mentioned also before, just time and energy, and finding the time to make videos consistently, which I want to do, and, you know, keep up with at the very least, end of year wrap up or end of month reading wrap ups and that sort of thing. So yeah. The next question is, when did you start reading? And my parents are both big readers as well. So I grew up in a house that was just full of books, and with parents who spent more time reading than like watching TV or anything like that, and definitely encouraged me to do the same. You know, they read to me out loud when I was young, and I remember that. I remember waiting for like story time at night, and wanting to get back to whatever book we were reading. And yeah, I learned to read pretty young as well. I don't remember what age I was. I was probably 5, but I remember very clearly the first book I read by myself, and it was that we had this illustrated edition of Little House in the Big Woods, a Laura Ingalls Wilder book, and I would look at it all the time to just look at the pictures because they were really beautiful illustrations. And so I knew the story so well that I kind of, as I was turning the pages and seeing the illustrations, was able to kind of follow the story in my head. But I remember one day sitting on the couch and reading it, or like flipping through it, and realizing that I had just read a couple lines of dialogue that I definitely didn't remember from the top of my head, and being like so proud of myself and reading the rest of the book, and then like hopping off the couch and being like, I just read this to myself, to my mom. But yeah, I feel like that was just, I remember that feeling that I had cracked a code, that was going to open up the entire world to me. The next question is, where do I read? And the answer to that is everywhere. I don't really, yeah, I mean, I have a book with me wherever I go. I always have a book with me, and if there is a chance to read, I will probably be reading. I also have, like, you know, books on my phone and stuff like that, and so if I'm in at work and things are really slow, if I'm in a traffic jam, if I am driving, I'm usually listening to an audiobook. So yeah, pretty much everywhere, but I will show you my favorite spots. Hello. Hello. This is my kind of reading nook, little chair. It's underneath my big bookcase. My little bookcase is next to it. You can see the pile of books on the floor. So this is usually where I'll like drink coffee and read in the morning, before going to work, or while I'll hang out as dinner's cooking or whatever. And it is a pretty cozy chair. It's a rocking chair, which I love. So that's where I spend a lot of time reading. Now the angle's all off because I got up to go film that chair. I'm sorry about the pile of crap in the corner. My house is very small. That's like the only storage corner that I have, and so it has a massive pile of outdoor gear and also my cat litter. And it's not a good video background, but anyway, I was really lucky to live in a cabin by a lake this summer for my work, and my other favorite place in the world to read is on the beach by the lake, right here with this view, and uh, I love it. I also really like reading in bed. I think one of my favorite things in the world is to have a morning where I don't have anything to do. I don't have to get up super early and go to work, and a morning where I can just wake up, make my coffee, bring it up to bed with me, and read and have a couple cups of coffee before my day really starts. That is like absolute bliss to me. Next question is, what are your top 3 genres? What kind of books do you like to read? And as I mentioned already, I read pretty widely across genres. And I think my top 3 genres are probably literary fiction, fantasy, and maybe romance, but like queer romance only. I don't read straight people romance, unless it's fantasy romance. But I also read a lot of nonfiction. Usually my nonfiction picks are like in the sort of science or current events, historical stuff. I want to read more widely in nonfiction, just because I feel like that's a really good way to learn. I also read a lot of historical fiction, a lot of speculative fiction and sci-fi. I'm trying to read more romance because I think I had a phase in college where I was like one of those assholes that was like, genre fiction isn't as good. And it like, I've read a lot of genre fiction since then that is like good and worthy, and I don't want to shoehorn myself. So I'm trying to experiment a little bit more with those. I'd like to read more graphic novels as well. And in terms of things I don't read, I straight up just don't read a lot of mystery or thrillers or horror. Another thing that I feel like I should explore more, because I don't want to shoehorn myself out of some potentially really good books. This is a pile of some of my very favorite books. I have a lot more books that are in my favorites, but a lot of them are in my parents' basement right now because I moved a bunch of books there when I moved here. But this pile is Ross Gay's Book of Delights, which is kind of poetry, memoir, nonfiction, creative writing. East of Eden by John Steinbeck, The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, The Chrysalids by John Wyndham, and... All right. I'll drink some tea. Last question is, what does your book collection look like? And my book collection looks like too many books. You can see some of it behind me here. I'll also show some close-ups of my shelves. But I have a lot of books, and actually most of the books I own aren't with me right now because, like I just mentioned, when I moved this spring, I brought like 4 gigantic boxes of books to my parents' house, 5 actually, and stored them in the basement. I had a lot more room at the place that I used to live. I had big bookshelves, and now I just don't. So I only brought mostly books that I hadn't yet read and my like absolute favorite books. And so a lot of the books that are comfort reads or old books or books that I really love aren't actually here with me. But I am a piler as well, so I've got piles of books everywhere. I check out a lot of books from the library, and those are kind of like a constantly rotating shelf on one of my bookshelves. And yeah, at my parents' house, my old room has been turned into a guest room, basically, long ago, / my mom's office. But all of the books in there are still my old books. And so that is kind of a nice thing about whenever I go home and visit, is revisiting some of my favorite books that are at my parents' house. So most of my books are on these shelves here. I'm still kind of trying to figure out my sort of organization of books because I did just move, but most of them are on this shelf. And then I also have this shelf here that you're seeing my all of my cat stuff. But yeah, this is another shelf that's full. I also have a tendency to pile books. As you can see here, there's a bunch also up in the loft where I sleep, but I'm not going to show you that because I have a bunch of dirty laundry that I haven't put away up there. But yeah, so this is where most of them are. And I really like this setup, the way this looks, because it's aesthetic and other things I like are on here. I don't love how this bookshelf looks. But you know, whatever. There's also not a lot of storage in the place that I'm living, and so like all my skis are piled here, and this is right next to the litter box and the outdoor gear, and there's other piles of books in other places. Say hi to the mountain goat. Boop! This is another little shelf where all of my cookbooks live. I have a lot more cookbooks than this, but most of them are at my parents' house right now. And I actually am going to pick a bunch up and bring them back here when I go home later this winter, because I miss the ones I don't have with me. So that's the tag. Those are the 10 questions that were listed on the post I found, and I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you all soon. Cheers!